family. You might say, no, no, it's not right. But when a 1,000 disappears in the family, you start knowing that you've got a criminal in the house, and you must investigate. But for the SABC, and from what you are saying, sir, in how you are handling consequences, that when it's 5 billion, and what your other person was saying to the press, no, 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 that's peanuts. It's not something to be worried about. Now, to me, there's a lot of issues that are beginning to prove that that type of an attitude is born in the SABC itself. That you don't care about the money of the public, about the money that we're making as the public within that. You just eat it as peanuts. Because you yourself in your report, that says that procurement, even PAs, they leave the reception office there and they go and sell anything that they want, and nobody cares. And that, you say, is the defects of the law. And you have not produced anything that could be able to provide us with evidence that the law has not been able to guide the SABC to do its work. And this is what the Auditor General says, that you have got no regard for the law as employees of the SABC. So you have an institution that doesn't care. It doesn't need the board to be compliant. It doesn't need the unions to be compliant. You must desist from the idea of trying to blame other people and don't blame yourself in how you conduct your work within the institution. And what I'm trying to sketch out to the chairperson and my colleague is that this leadership that is in front of us is misleading us. It's not telling us the truth. And it would need us to be able to rein them in, because you can't mislead Parliament. That is in the PFMA. On that, I must tell you, it's got consequences. And if you don't know, sir, judges at this particular moment, when it comes to irregular and fruitless expenditure, are beginning to criminalize this type of activities. That's why we've got the hawks inside the institution. Because this is criminality. It's worse now. You are saying to me there's so many criminals within the institution that you don't even carry any knowledge about them. Good morning lives and whatever, I must now watch them with some suspicion. But there might be criminals.
All right. I want. Look, comrades, we I know our. Oh, okay. I want to give you, comrades, but let's keep in mind the fact that the sentiment has been that we should engage the SABC continuously, so that together with them we can isolate areas of challenge and agree on what needs to be done to ensure that those things are sorted out and it moves out of its area of challenge. So we're not going to be finishing everything today. And I want us to be really focused, because there are so many things. We might find ourselves in the bush at the end. Comrade Chilwane, Comrade Kuno. Yes, okay, fine. I'll move along. Yes, comrade.
Thank you, Chairperson. Just to get the clarity from you, so in terms of proceeding with the meeting, you're saying we just focus on irregular expenditure and wasteful, or should be any other issues that we can pick from the.
Well, look, I haven't stopped comrades from raising general issues, but I'm just saying that was actually straying away from why the SABC is here. They came here knowing that we're coming to deal with irregular as well as fruitless and wasteful expenditure. But I allowed some leeway in the context of what we have in front of us, which indicates that broadly and generally we have a problem. So I don't know, let me hear you.
Okay, Chairperson. I've got a few questions on irregular expenditure. One, Chairperson, out of the 5.1 billion that was incurred in terms of the irregular expenditure, there's an amount of 225 million which was
Where is it?
incurred
Is there a page? No, I don't think there are pages. No, it's fine. Continue.
yeah, which incurred, Chairperson, due to inadequate monitoring of contracts. One would love to know who was responsible in monitoring those contracts and what happened to that particular official. Probably maybe before what happened, what was the explanation? Why did he or she failed to do the work as expected? And what were the consequences management against that particular person? That is question number one on the irregular expenditure person. And then the second one, are you noting it? Or you will remember because I've got just a few of them. On the declaration of interest, there are a number of discrepancies that happened to add to the irregular expenditure. There are two SABC officials who did not declare. The committee would love to know who are those two officials, what happened, and how much have they added into the irregular expenditure. And then there's, I think it's on investigations. In terms of the annual report, there are investigations that were not concluded. The committee would also love to know what are the reasons that have caused those investigations not to be concluded. I know the other one is still under investigation. It's emanating from the issue that was raised by the public protector in 2014. I know it was part of the discussions during the together with the ad hoc committee, but it also appears in the annual report as mentioned by the AG. And as well, Mr. Rajtangani maybe will be able to assist on this one. There's an investigation that is done by the National Treasury on contravention of the supply chain management. If we can get a progress report in that regard. I think my last question for now, when you go to commitments, that is shown at page 133 of the annual report, Chairperson, table 5. The SABC has committed the amount of 1.9 billion for this financial year. And the past financial year, it had committed an amount of 1.6 billion. And according to SABC, is that this money will be financed, will be raised internally. And in terms of this commitment, one would like to know, how are you going to finance this commitment that you have done already, and why is it going to increase on yearly basis? Because for the past 2 years it has increased. And especially on the film and sports, the SABC said it will be financed internally, which means that you have already entered into an agreement. Why do you enter in an agreement with something that you have not budgeted for? You budget it internally, whereas you've got most of these discrepancies in terms of financial health in the SABC. Thank you, Chairperson.
All right. Because the question were numerous, can we respond to them briefly before we go to Comrade Kuno?
Okay, thank you, Honorable Chilwani. The first question is around the 225 million relating to split orders and so on. The people who caused this is the buyers in procurement. There's several buyers who acquired goods and services in procurement, so they're the ones who caused that amount. And the second question is declaration of interest. Yes, the AG gave us a schedule of state officials who trade with the SABC, and specifically highlighted two officials of the SABC that are trading with the SABC. How much they have added to the regular, I'm not sure to date, but I can write and give you an explanation. But I'll also just have, if you allow me, Chairperson, just to tell you that some of those figures that have been shown there, we are having discussions with the AG in that regard. The reason being that you would find, for example, I used the example in the portfolio committee yesterday, that Ma'am Teresa Heldenes used to work for Mutual and Federal. So on the CPRO system, she's shown as a director in Mutual and Federal. And because the SABC has dealings with insurance companies, it also comes out as a match. So we are discussing with the AG, saying that she's not a director of Mutual and Federal, we know that. So we may have to look at that schedule. So we are investigating this. There are issues around the CPRO system. So that we shall investigate, Chairperson, and we can give you the results of that. That certain people who have resigned or even left employment in certain areas are still being shown as part of the CPRO system. But I've had a discussion with the AG team around that, making sure that they need to then go and confirm that these people have resigned. The other one is investigations not concluded by National Treasury. National Treasury has written to the SABC letters inquiring, asking for information around certain transactions, one of which was Vision View and Sikela and Lona Vision. They wrote directly to the SABC, and we have reporting protocols in the SABC whereby we ask departments to communicate directly to the Department of Communication, then it sends the request to us. So what the SFCC did is it wrote back to Treasury and said, please, we have an agreed reporting protocol with Department of Communication. Please send that letter to either the DG or the minister such that he can send it to us. And the reason for that, Chairperson, is that we do not want staff members at all levels communicating out. So we have that reporting mechanism. The National Treasury has not come back to us with regard to that request to send it to the accounting authority. So that is the investigation that is underway, that they are requiring information for. And we want to submit the information, but we're saying, just please, we have these protocols, please follow them. You have asked about commitments for the financial year. The amount that you see there of 1.9 billion, Honorable Chilwani, talks to long-term contracts that the SABC enters into. For example, we can enter into a contract to commission generations or we could also enter into a contract to acquire FIFA rights for World Cups. So the build-up to the games may be 4 years from the day we enter into a contract, or for generations we usually sign 3-year contracts. So you will see that at year end, what we say, we haven't got the services yet from FIFA because maybe the games are going to be played in a year or two. So that amount that we have, that we may pay in future is what we have disclosed as commitments. But it's the nature of the broadcasting business in that you will always sign long-term contracts for sports rights, FIFA, and maybe PSL, SAFA, and so on. So the amounts outstanding are what make up the figure of commitments. We haven't yet received the services, but we're saying when we get to that future date in the contract, we may have to pay these amounts. And you have said, how will this be financed? A lot of the content acquisition and refinance of our income statement, meaning that when we, in the current year, sell advertising space around generations, the monies that we will save in our reserves is what we use, what we are saying that we shall use to then pay for the future costs that will come. So we are going to finance it off from our cash reserves. Why has it increased? At the portfolio committee yesterday, we explained that usually it depends on the schedule, because SABC expenditure on content is determined by the schedule. So you will see that, for example, if there's a World Cup happening in 4 years, we can sign the contract today for, I would argue, maybe about $10 million. 4 years previous to this contract, they may have given us the rights at $7 million. So in our discussion with the portfolio committee, we say that with sports rights, we are price takers. We don't determine the price. Somebody walks in with a briefcase and he tells you, you paid 7, today you've got to pay 10. And we don't have a lot of leeway to negotiate around those areas. And also, you will notice that if the schedule has to change, let's say we want to bring in a new drama or a new series, usually local content tends to be more expensive than foreign content. And we have a 90-10 policy where we're saying, let's have more local content so that we can invest this money in the economy. So that is why you see that increase in the costs.
Okay. Yeah.
Chairperson, just 2 follow-ups on the 225 million for which happened due to inadequate monitoring by a particular official. We've asked, is that official still in the employ of the SABC, and what happened? Are there any consequence management? I didn't hear you when you respond to that one. And secondly, Chairperson, for probably on my own interest in terms of the commitment that we've made. You've mentioned things like your sports, your FIFA or generations. I remember in the previous years there was a mention of saying SABC has some open-ended contract with some of the people who are doing those that we watch on TV, those soapies. Do you still have one, or have you started to? I know, Chairperson, probably just for my own interest and for the interest probably for the public, maybe the portfolio committee have asked that question. Just to check, have you renegotiated those open-ended contract that you used to have, because they were charging a lot of money for the coffers of SABC and South Africa at large? How far have you gone to? Do you still have some? Just to mention, for instance, you had the Bold and Beautiful and I think Days of Our Lives, which had an open-ended. No, Mvango, it's okay, it's our own, South African soapy. But I mean, those international, I'm not saying we don't want to watch them, but we know them. But that open-ended thing of a contract, how far has it come to? Because it might be the one that it's increasing these commitments, liabilities. Thank you.
Okay.
Chairperson, the 225 million, the split orders, the person ultimately who is responsible for ensuring that those split orders didn't happen. That means you don't circumvent the going to tender by splitting orders, is the head of supply chain management, and we don't have that head of supply chain management currently there. He left the organization. The other question about evergreen contracts, that is also one area which we have ring-fenced. Around content, we don't have evergreen contracts because we can terminate those contracts. It's part of our contracts that we can terminate them at the election of either the SABC or the supplier. So we don't have evergreen contracts. However, there are some which have been brought to my attention as part of this investigation about some contracts that were signed even in, I think it's 1984. Somebody told me. I've asked for a request. Because to get this note correct of irregular fruitless and wasteful, I unfortunately have to jump in the back, and I'm getting all this information. So it has come to my attention. I'm going to look at it and see, because that can't be right. So it's a journey of discovery, Chairperson, that I'm following in trying to deal with this matter. But I can tell you that the number of evergreen contracts, I'm told, compared to the past, when I was not there, it has reduced significantly. But as and when they come up, I'm reviewing them.
Protect me, Chairperson. He's intimidating me.
Okay.
Thank you, Chairperson. You know, when he answers, you know, the issue with the interest part of it with our committee is that when somebody answer a question, it then open up. I just want to go back to the issue of the head of supply chain management, because Chairperson, he says he's gone, he's no more there, probably. I don't know whether you don't have anybody who's acting in that regard, because Chairperson, like I'm saying, it then open up, because one of the issues that was raised by the AG is that SABC, they don't follow due processes in terms of their supply chain management. And now when you ask this question, then it opens up to another one, that there's no supply chain management person in there. And whereas some of the issues which have been picked up by the AG is that this supply chain management, or also even the irregular expenditure, happened because there was no one or whoever who was there could not follow due processes in terms of what is expected of him or her to do that particular process. So I want to check in terms of the PFMA, because the accounting authority should take reasonable steps to discipline that particular person who has caused the entity to be involved in this kind of magnitude offense. We might call it an offense, because 5.1 billion is a lot of money. What happened? Where is this person? Can't you follow and put up some disciplinary measures, take some disciplinary measures to that particular, because he has really compromised, he or my apologies, he or she has really compromised the SABC, because 5.1 billion, it's a lot of money. We might talk like it's a small money, but it's a lot of money. Hence I'm saying, Chairperson, as we answer, as we continue with the discussions, it open up so many things that we might want to pursue, but maybe we might put it as a food for thought, because we're still going to meet the SABC. But I just wanted to state categorically that there's no way that the SABC can operate without a head of supply chain management. I think that is contempt of the PFMA. Thank you.
All right. Let's have it as food for thought. Yeah. No. I'm coming that way. My understanding is that. In relation to the 225 million, the person responsible for that amount has left. So they might have employed somebody else. But in relation to that figure that you quoted, that person is no longer there. Comrade Kuno.
Thanks,
you'll
Chairperson.
be
As
the
long
last.
as that person is not dead, I think the person can come in to the committee and tell us how did he spend or she spent that 225 million. But Chairperson, I also have a few questions that I wanted to ask. And my first question is that, do you get performance bonus, and what informs that? Since you have shown in your type of answering that there's non-commitment and there's a lot of negligence as far as SABC is concerned. That's how you have assert yourself here. The asset register that you spoke about, that you had to go and employ consultants. We've talked a lot of departments and its entities out of employment of consultants. We have vacancy rate in South Africa. It's really quite high. And you know, I'm asking myself now, and that's one of the questions I wanted to ask you. How much did you pay for that consultant for the asset register? Since you said you are almost 90%, can we get the copy of the asset register as soon as possible? And maybe with that, coupled with that, do you still have consultants? And what are those consultants doing? Because I think we need to get to the bottom of lowering the vacancy rate in South Africa. 150.1 million was made close to, it was spent or made available to members who were part of SABC, the close relatives and associates. I need to know here and now who are those employees who did contracts with the states up to 150 million rands, and what did you do as the group CEO to deal with that? And then 2 awards to the value of 5.5 million were made to persons in the state who are working for the state. Who are those persons, and what are you doing to deal with that? Comrade Nyami Boy spoke a lot about human resource and its problem, and the recruitment processes that were not followed. And there's a point, there's an amount of 92.5 million, which talks to exactly that, the processes that have not been followed. How much have you paid for cancellation of contracts? And any investigations that you have made? I mean, maybe it's because maybe they are here, but we didn't get enough time to deal with those investigations. If you can just verbally respond to that. And how many employees have been disciplined so far? You have given us a report, and I think obviously from that report, there are some steps taken to make sure that some of the employees are disciplined, and we want to know so that this notion of kukwagogo, anything can happen here. We deal with that and right here and now. And maybe and Tatesoli Ratizang, I think this is not the only entity or a department that does not follow PFMA. Maybe we need to have, just thinking out loud, Water Affairs was one of those departments that did not follow PFMA. They have their own supply chain management policies which are not aligned to what the PFMA is saying. And I think you need to come up with a strategy of making sure that a lot of...
See, comrade, the danger is that by the time you finish, they may not even remember the first question.
Oh, okay, no, I just want to emphasize on the PFMA. And the one of the problems of not adhering to the PFMA, they don't have internal audits. And that's a problem on its own. So that's why I was saying that there needs to be something, and Treasury has to take part in making sure that this is really taken serious. Thanks, Chair.
All right. Who was next? Comrade Mente. Let's take Mente and then you respond, and then we'll take Dr. Seth and Ross, and then we respond. I do want to say, comrades, that yeah, it will be the last. We were meant to talk about irregular expenditure as well as fruitless and wasteful expenditure. And I thought, with the constraints that we have in terms of details, any discussion will center around primarily that. Otherwise, if it just becomes about anything and everything, then we lose the focus. Yes, comrade.
Thanks, Chair. Chairperson, I want us to go back to basics on the issue of the findings of the AG in terms of irregular and fruitless. Number one, earlier on, when the group CEO was responding to Hlengwa's session, he cited that, which is also in their presentation, their regulations or their policy didn't require certain things. Now I sit here and I refuse to accept that. Why? When you are employing a manager in SCM, the basics of the interview is PFMA, is triple PFA, is Treasury regulations, and now there's a PEM Act. Those are the basis of each and every interview. Then that person comes into the post, forgets that the PFMA, the Treasury regulations, the triple PFA requires of them, and they stick to a policy that say, no, do not ask for the SARS certificate. Do not vet this person. When an HR manager is employed, they must understand EE Act, they must understand labor relations, they must understand the human resources and the PEM Act. But they come to office and they do the opposite. Then the reasons that are supplied to us are that the policy within the department, which is the SABC, were not aligned with the law. But the manager sat in an interview and was deemed fit to understand the law. How is that possible? How is it possible? I refuse. I can't take that excuse. It's just not an excuse. Otherwise, we have a person who was never interviewed, is getting a huge salary, and doesn't care about everything else or doesn't even know about the law. But they will just use whatever document is there to govern that particular department. Then number two, Chairperson, is the duplication that the group CEO is talking about, and I'm worried about that. You are saying you have hired an independent audit firm now to look into these nitty-gritties of the Auditor General. But earlier on you indicated that your internal auditors actually did their work in terms of highlighting to you the problems and everything. And then the Auditor General comes and confirms them. Now, you want to say the SABC does not have capacity to identify who hired the car, where, for how much. That must go to a private entity that is going to cost the state another huge sums of money. And that is not allowed. We cannot allow such. It's something that you have known of, confirmed by the most credible institution, which is the AG. You still take it to another person to pay that person to do that job. where is it going to end? Thank you.
All right, can we respond to
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. With the asset register, we will submit an asset register, the current one that we have, and also the cost that we incurred to hire the company to help us compile those records. The question of bonuses, the SABC doesn't pay bonuses to staff members regarding
does not pay or has not paid?
has not paid bonuses to staff members. What you saw in the annual financial statements was relating to the 13th check that senior management had not been paid, and in order to bring in parity, then that amount had to be settled. In the previous year, it was also an amount that was paid to staff members because the board recognized that the staff members had, especially the middle to senior managers, had contributed a lot during the turnaround of the SABC from, you know,
What about the lower
having
levels?
not funds.
They didn't contribute anything.
Yeah, they also got that
But you
once
say
off.
no. But you said from middle to senior management level.
Yeah. What drove it was that they needed to give middle to senior managers
Well,
who sacrificed.
That's fine.
During
So I was asking the
2010.
question. So the lower levels didn't contribute anything. They didn't sacrifice anything.
They did, and they were paid the amounts, but for them they didn't sacrifice their 13th check. Because even during austerity, the lower levels still had their 13th check.
That's fine. Go back.
The list of 150 million submitted list of employees of the SABC. Those employees, Honorable Member, that we are talking about who have dealt with the SABC, employees of the state and so on, is a result of the Auditor General running the employment records of state organizations against CIPRO, then they run it against our database. So we have found that the 5.5 million that was made to awards of people working with the state could be, for example, a couple of officials, municipal officials, let's say, working in the Free State or the Northwest. So there's nothing the SABC can do with that. We, as the SABC, can't do anything about that. But the staff members, that's the 5.5 million that you said was made to people working with the state. It could be, for argument's sake, somebody who is in the Northwest in a municipality has a company, then he supplies the SABC. We wouldn't know what that until the AG tells us, because we don't have the capacity to detect. We don't have access to the payroll records of other state organizations to check. But however, when I was with the AG, I knew they reported that as part of their general report to show that officials are trading the state. However, those who are employed within the SABC, as I've said, we are reviewing that and we're having discussions with the AG. I gave an example of the GE of risk.
So are you saying that all those findings, all of the findings of the Auditor General, insofar as people at the employ of the SABC, they are all wrong?
I'm not saying they're wrong. We have them, and we're investigating the issues. But I've given you a classical example that came on my desk.
You're giving an extreme example, yes, which sort of rubbishes almost everything else, or casts doubt on everything else. I think it would have been fair to say we're investigating and leave it at that.
Okay. I will, as I said, Chairperson, submit you to the committee the results of that investigation, because we are discussing with the AG that report.
Are you discussing with the AG or
AG.
investigating the matter?
No, we're investigating and also asking the AG where they got the information, because it's from their report.
All right.
The other one is how much have employees been paid for cancellations of contracts. I will submit that to you, Chairperson, if you allow, because we didn't prepare for that. And how many employees also have been disciplined, I will send that information to you. The hiring of SABC of SABC staff who may not have the necessary skills. Chairperson, I agree with you around this issue. It is, or let's say it was a problem because we had a skills audit that we conducted and it picked up these issues. So what we have done currently is we have reinforced the SABC supply chain function. We've gone out and hired people with skills and the necessary skills. But it's true, it was a concern that you would find that in that case of tax clearance certificates, it just didn't make sense, especially to some of us who came from outside. How did somebody review that? So we know that weakness, and it was a historical problem. We are dealing with it. Currently now, we have a head of supply chain who is a capable individual, and we are also recruiting capable skills from sister state entities that can lend expertise to the SABC. I can give you assurance of that. We have hired people and we are dealing with these matters. Why hire an audit firm to assist us when we have the staff? Chairperson, this was a deliberate decision because, one, in 2013-14, when they tried to deal with the problem, we recognized that it would be a problem to send the very people who did not know that you need a tax clearance certificate to look for the same problem. That was one thing. Second other issue is we also wanted to create an element of independence, that we select an audit firm that is skilled in detecting
All right.
irregular, fruitless, and wasteful, such that there's an item of
No,
independence.
wait. Let's leave it at people who didn't have skills, you see, because if they had the skills, then they will do the work for you. Otherwise, if you can't trust them to objectively do work internal, then they should not be hired, you see. So let's leave it at that level of skills. Continue.
Chairperson, that's my comment.
All right.
You didn't answer the cancellation of contracts because that will be irregular. How much did they pay for those cancellation of contracts? And is there any official who have been punished or investigated as far as that is concerned?
Chairperson, I said I will submit that information. I will tabulate it and submit it to you because I haven't prepared that information.
Okay. Yes, comrade.
Okay, Chair, just like he has assured us in terms of the SCM managers and skills, can he make the same assurance about HRM? Because the HRM is also in the very same predicament, and they even fail to assess the managers correctly so and pick up that they are not working.
Chairperson, I can say that we identified the same weakness also in HR, and we have recruited necessary skills to strengthen the HR function.
Right. Tim?
Thank you, Chair. Chair, first of all, I apologize for being late. The traffic from the airport is crazy these days. So please stop me if this question has been asked, but I don't think it has. I'm concerned that in your presentation relating to fruitless and wasteful expenditure, I can't see the page number of it here. But anyway, you state that you're obviously going to do the classifications of all, you're going to be going through all these instances of regular, fruitless and wasteful expenditure, and you're going to be basically using criteria to decide what they are. And you indicate on this particular page that all travel and accommodation cancellation fees, charges were previously disclosed as fruitless and wasteful expenditure. However, some of the expenditure has been validated as justifiable based on the nature of the business. I just want to put it to you, and I don't want to get into an argument now because you're going to be coming back to the committee. Please don't come to this committee and tell us that people who don't pitch for flights and people don't pitch for accommodation is justifiable in any shape, way or form. I'm just giving you a friendly warning to avoid being attacked, okay, because that won't wash here. So be very careful when you look at that, right, because that comes down to simple planning, and as I always say, where's your calendar, okay? And then the next thing I'm concerned about is in the additional information we got was the HR issue. Now, Chair, I'm raising this, and I'm not trying to deviate away, is that this, you've given us an undertaking in your presentation that you're going to give us a full report by 31 May. I believe my colleagues have pushed you to give it to us in a month. But you've got some HR vacancy issues here. And I'm just wondering whether you actually have the capacity to realistically provide that report to us in a month, to go through 6 years of irregular expenditure and fruitless and wasteful expenditure, and actually come with a detailed report of what you're going to do, what you are doing, what's happening. Is that realistic? So that's my second question. Then finally, on this additional information you sent us, I'm not sure if you, I think you did send it to us, yes. You say your HR has got an increase in vacancy rate from 3.1 to 7.4%. Are you familiar with these percentages? I'm sure you must be. Senior management vacancy rate from 8% to 14.7%. And then, importantly in finance, the vacancy rate is 5% and the internal is 4%. Can you express that to me in numbers of people? It's difficult to gauge when you say 8% to 14.7%. How many people is that actually? How many posts is that actually? And also, is that a percentage of the entire of the SABC or a percentage of that department that you're talking about? I think that's very important for us to know. Thanks.
All right. Ross?
Thank you, Chair. Just three very short questions. With regards to the investigations, do you have any cost analysis, what it will ultimately cost you? A lot of the investigations has been outsourced. Have you made a cost analysis, and do you have an indication that you perhaps could provide us with that? And then secondly, with regards to investigations, the proposal from one of my colleagues with regards to the Hawks involvement in terms of a forensic auditing help that we can get from the Hawks. Is that accepted? Is that a proposal that you will perhaps find helpful in this regard? Perhaps to minimize cost also. And then with regards to regression in leadership, as the Auditor General indicated, and he tried to do it in terms of timeframes. Now, within those timeframes, I would appreciate if we could perhaps, and perhaps I've missed the names of this delegation today. Is it possible that you can send us just a document with the names of the delegation currently today, and perhaps on which date you started with the corporation? So to give us an indication as to since when were you involved, perhaps not to blame people that came very late on board, etc., etc. When you see implosion on leadership and what the AG actually meant, and see when people, how long have people been in the institution, and give us more clarity with regards to that. And then just the last very short question. Irregular expenditure is a serious offence, a possible serious offence in terms of non-compliance in legislation. But also the state in terms of the implication on the fiscus, where you find guarantees to these state-owned entities. Were there any guarantees, and what were the guarantees given to your corporation?
All right, may we respond to the questions from the...
Thank you very much. I will, as I said, send the information regarding the fruitless and wasteful that we are reviewing, and the explanations. I understand you don't want an explanation, but when we've gone through the schedule, we'll just put the reasons, and you will understand how those cases, cancellations happen at times. Is the date of 31st March 2007 realistic? It's a very, very tight deadline, but that's what we have agreed with our service providers. However, as I said, it's two levels, Chairperson, that we want to make sure that the numbers are good for disclosure. Then when the numbers are good for disclosure, depending on the causes that led to those numbers, then action is going to be taken thereafter. And I would really state that probably a mistake that I made was not to process people as it came about. I wanted them to be looked at in totality and dealt with, but I think probably that was an error, which I will accept. I wanted people to package them as root causes and who is concerned, then we deal with them in totality, know that person X caused X billions, person Y. But as on a piece-by-piece basis, I thought maybe would not be effective, because you may deal with a person with 5 million, then later on when he's out of the building, you find he has caused 50 million, and then it becomes a problem. But I agree with that. I'm going to ask the team that as whichever data they have, let's just start taking people through the mill. Whether it's realistic, honorable member, the date that we have put there is 31st May, because that's when we wanted to submit the financials. So we said if it's good for disclosure, then the other bit of the disciplinary will depend on the circumstances. For example, if we find obvious fraud, then we shall send it to the police. If we find that it's just something that we can manage internally, like somebody's fruitless and wasteful, we'll send them letters, demands for payment, and so on. So it depends on the nature of the infringement of the PFMA that could lead either to irregular, fruitless, and wasteful. But certainly, with the police, we have a lot of interactions with them, especially Brixton Police Station, that in cases where we find fraud, we send them up. You may have noticed, Chairperson, that last year we let go of 123 staff members who were involved in medical aid fraud. And some of those cases have been listed with the police. The previous supply chain manager is also listed with the police in a criminal case. Not the one who just left, was let go recently, just the one before. So there are interactions with the police. Our forensic unit does that. A cost analysis of investigations, I don't have that information here. I will prepare it for you and send it. And also the names of the delegation here, because we entered the organization at different times in the year and found existing problems. But we are not running away from the problem. We are there. We are going to deal with it. But we can't say that it's not challenging. We take full responsibility, because we are the only heads on the block now, and we've got to deal with that. Guarantees to the SABC, we haven't got any guarantees given to the SABC, because we don't have any need for them now. However, we as part of our treasury processes, we have facilities open with the bank. I think last time I checked was about 90 million as normal treasury processes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Comrade Kekane. And I want us to round this off, and I'll give Comrade Kekane. Comrade Boy, you had your hand up. Fine, right. We'll check with National Treasury, but also the department. You have been sitting, you have been listening. We also want to check one or two things with you. Yes, Comrade?
No, thanks, Chair. I had a list of questions, but because you indicated that we would still have another engagement that is with SABC, I'm not going to raise them. I would only raise two now on the issue of HR. And going through the AG's report, he has found that there were appointments made that is on posts that were not advertised. My question is, which posts were those, and can we get a quantification in terms of the salaries involved? That's one question. The second one was, apparently there was no investigation on the suspended officials. The question there also would be, who are those suspended officials and how many are they? I think those are the two questions that I wanted to ask.
Okay, thanks. Comrade Boy?
No, Chairperson, I just wanted to caution the Group CEO that the level of our engagement today, sir, you have weakened it because you have given us false information, but it's fine. We are going to carry you until we are confident that the SABC is out of the woods. We are not going to be compromised by you in the way you've delivered. I've read your document again. It's very inconsistent. It's not in terms of what the Auditor General have identified as irregular expenditure. It's in terms of what you thumbsuck as information and brought it to Parliament. That is gross violation of the engagement that we have through the PFMA. I want to give you respect as an auditor, but it seems as if you've got no respect for what the Auditor General or all accountants around the world give respect to. I want you to take that on your own consciousness. Misleading Parliament is a serious crime. You can't lead our institution based on that type of a view. And the fact that you disregard and continuously, as I was listening to you, you've got no respect for the Auditor General, and that is a problem, you see. But I would encourage you, sir, your comprehensive strategy that you call turnaround, would you submit it to the chairperson? I would want to encourage you, sir, the condemnations that you want to negotiate with Treasury, would you make sure before they go to Treasury, you via them here in Parliament? Because we would want to be more interested in that type of work. That why are you soliciting condemnation when you, for a matter of fact, know that you haven't had a history of documentation? You continue using private companies to run the institution. And we would want to know those private companies. Give us the list. It might be brothers and sisters within the institution. Would love to hear that. And we would want you to continue giving us the list of people that are buyers that you are working with, so that we could, as I said to you initially when I started, we're interested to the detail of that ANN7 deal with the SABC. We want the rands and cents. We're not interested in the politics. We want to know how much are you spending in these breakfast shows, and what is it? What bearing does it have for the finances of the SABC? It was said publicly that you are spending money on that thing, and nowhere in your reporting does it come out. Give us the rand and cents, and give it to the chairperson. But me and you and your team chief, it's not the last day today. We are going to be engaging you, because quite clearly we have a serious problem. You are misleading us. You are lying to us. And that I'm not going to compromise about. I'll tell you the day I'm convinced that you're telling us the truth. Of now, you are lying. You're not telling us the truth. You're not able to give us who are the family members in this team that is doing business with the SABC. You're not able. And the Auditor General says these things. These members are not asking questions from the street. We've got so more than, I don't know how many departments are we monitoring day in, day out. We don't bring gossip to Parliament. We don't sit here and gossip about you, because we don't know you. We know you as employees of the state. And as long as we have to do a job of looking after you, sir, we have to find out if you are doing business with the state. Give us the honest fact, who is it, so that you can also be convinced. But if you can't, there's something wrong with the institution. But thank you, Chairperson, for giving that opportunity.
All right. I want us to wrap this up. Comrade Kuno.
I just wanted to say that, just adding a little bit on what Comrade Nyami has said, that a lot of jobs here have been outsourced, which is a grave concern. And I was just talking to my colleague here earlier on and saying, you know what, one of the things that is a grave concern to us as members of Parliament, because we are the ones who appoint a board of SABC, and to the public out there, is what is the root cause. And I think the root cause, some of the root cause is that most of the departments here within the SABC are not functional at all. And I think it's about time that you go sit down, Chief, together with your acting whoever, and try to find a way of meet us halfway and tell us what are you doing with government's money. If it means people being if it means people losing their jobs, let it be. But again, we are not going to sit down here and listening to you outsourcing everything to the service providers, and we really want to see that report, because it's really important. If we have a vacancy rate that we're talking about, and you keep on outsourcing everything, I think it's a problem, and we are not going to getting away with it. It means SABC again is going to get an opinion again, a qualified opinion again, one more. And we want to help you. It's not for us, but we want to help you and make sure that as a national broadcaster, there's a difference that you are making to the people out there. Thanks.
Okay, that's fine. Chitangan.
Thanks, Chair. I wanted to respond to one issue, the investigation by National Treasury. You see, the reasons for not submitting the document, it depends on who is or who was in charge of the SABC. We requested some of those documents in 2015, and early in January 2016, Mr. Matlala, who was the CEO there, group CEO, undertook to submit them. And a day before he was going to submit them, he was suspended. And then Matthews was appointed, Mr. Matthews was appointed to act, and he started giving new reasons why he's not going to submit until he left. We wrote now to Mr. Aguma, who's now acting, and I hear the reason that he's saying is the reason for not submitting. But otherwise, we will submit all our correspondences to the committee so that you can read and decide for yourself.
All right. Comrades, please. No, please. Let's remain focused. I think there were questions that Comrade Kekana raised. Can you respond to them?
Honorable Kekana, the appointments that were made without adverts, I can give you a list of them because I'll not be able to establish them. Plus their packages, I'll also submit them in a written format. Plus also who was suspended and why. That talks to the AG's report. Then I can give it to you in writing.
And Chair, the other information that I requested is the quantification in terms of the salaries.
Salaries, yes. I've taken that also. Sure.
Well, maybe let me start with you, CFO of the National Department. Your own understanding and analysis, and how you have sought or seek to assist this your ailing entity called SABC.
Thanks, Honorable Chair and honorable members. Honorable members have said a lot of issues, and I agree that certain matters will ensure that we have taken notes of what they have said, and we will make follow-ups. But from where we are sitting as the Department of Communications, in relation to the AG matters, we have requested SABC to do an AG action plan from 13 and 14 in terms of their qualification issues. And we look at the reasons that they put and the actions that they say they will commit to deal with that. And I think what we have raised in the last session we had with them is that instead of focusing on the AG qualifications only, because I think that is where the challenge is, we must also go and develop the management letter action plan, because that is the key challenge in terms of dealing with the root causes that we have as an institution. And that will assist us to deal with all these issues that the members are raising. Because when you focus on the qualification issues, it's only what the AG has raised that is on the basis of this qualification we are dealing with. And we focus on that and we leave the other internal processes behind because we didn't put the action plan that will deal with that. And we have agreed that moving forward, we would love to see that action plan that addresses the management letter issues that have been raised by the AG. And hopefully we will get an assurance that most of the things won't repeat themselves moving forward. But Chair, also to say that because we're focusing on the qualification, you will see on their report that there were reduction in the qualification of the audit findings from 8 to 3, and then now we are remaining with this irregular and fruitless expenditure. And Chair, I need to say I'm happy that the SABC was asked to come to this committee to understand. When we say we need to be accountable, what does it mean? Because sometimes when you ask certain information, it becomes very difficult because you are a shareholder, you are not supposed to interfere in certain processes. So you are limited to what you are given in terms of the information. But being exposed to this committee, for sure, for now moving forward, they will understand how do we need to assist each other in making sure that we move this process forward. Chair, I must say that in terms of all the entities within the corporate, within the department, we have what we call the CFO's forum that works on this AG matters, that meet on quarterly basis to look at what are the issues, and even coming from their performance reports, what are the issues, because if you look at the entire annual report, one of the issues that was raised by the AG is that their targets are not smart, and as a result it becomes very difficult for them to audit. So we are at a point even where we have instituted the strategic planning forum, where we will deal with these issues of indicators and matters, so that when they come at the end of audit, the AG can audit what we have agreed. And what we have agreed on the process moving forward is that as soon as we have developed the plans, we must give them the AG to audit them until before we submit to Parliament for adoption. And if we can move in that direction, Chair, we will eliminate a lot of challenges when coming to the annual reports. I must say that one of the things that I've spoken to the leadership in the SABC was about the issue of the systems internally as management level that must deal with these matters. We have agreed that we must have theft and losses committee that meets on regular basis. Because if you have that kind of a committee, it's able to deal with all these small items that the members are raising. If there is no show, there is no flight or whatever, the committee can dispose those things before even the AG could come and elevate these matters to this level. So if we can agree on those simple things to put in place, Chair, we can take the SABC forward. But I must acknowledge that from the meetings that I had with the SABC in relation to their audit opinion, the issue of leadership instability in the organization is a challenge, because it also accounts on the accountability part and who must take responsibility. I'm raising this in relation to Honorable Klango was raising about the issue of the audit committee and what was it doing. And this is the challenge that I've raised to say, if we have to blame everything now on the supply chain, what comes to me is that the board that was there at the time that these things were happening, what were their competency level to deal with these matters? Because the policies of the organizations are presented to the board that must approve those policies to be done in that manner. And that raises a challenge to say, maybe the submission is that to this parliament has to do recommendation for appointment of these board members. This is an issue that must be taken into consideration to ensure that people that are appointed at this board level, they are able to deal with issues of governance. Because if at board level they can't say no, it becomes problematic if management is find a way of just putting the report through. So this is a mechanism that we will love the parliament to assist us in making sure that we get people that must assist the shareholder in terms of managing this issue. The other issue that we have raised is the issue of records management. Because Chair, when I saw the annual report, I said to them, and GCO notes, I said, you are lucky that you didn't get this claim. Because from my experience is that when the AG audit you and you can't submit a document, it's automatically a disclaimer. But I think the AG has given them a benefit of a doubt because of the processes that they have put in place to make sure that they clear this document management. But we have also advised them to discuss with the National Archives body to assist them in terms of records management and filing, because it's very crucial when coming to audit matters. And if they would deal with that, the GCO has agreed that he will action that processes to make sure that from now moving forward, they will be able to account properly in terms of the documentations. And the last thing, Chairperson, we have agreed that in terms of preparation of AFS, when we do submission before we do the submission to the Auditor General, we have our last CFO's forum meeting around the second week in May, just to go through all entities, supply chain, and analyze them, whether they have complied in terms of the framework and the SAPTAP and all those things. And that is assisting in terms of making sure that we are able to correct each other and make sure that when we submit a proper document. But the challenge becomes that we can look at the face value of the information that is given. We are not auditing what has been presented, and becomes a challenge because when the auditors go there and audit and they find something that is material that lead to qualification, automatically they come with this standard. It's a standard clause that the statement you have submitted, they didn't comply with PFMA, IFRIS, and all those lot of things. And I think this is the challenge that we are having to say, we are discussing amongst ourselves, how best must we deal with that? And what we have done in the main department, we have started. Before we submit our AFS for external auditors, our internal audit unit looks at the report and the supporting documents that we have done for the auditors. And that is one of the best practice that we want to share with the entities in terms of making sure that their internal audit function within the organization assist them in dealing with this thing, because if they are independent, we expect the internal auditors in the entities to be independent of the management so that they can raise this matter sharply and they must respond to them as if they are responding to the AG. And this can minimize the area where we find ourselves sitting in Parliament today. But Chair, we are waiting for the final report, because in terms of the action plan, they promised that by the end of this financial year, they would have finalized this investigation on the irregular and wasteful expenditure. So we are waiting to see that report and see what did they do in terms of the final outcome of the report, because what we have made to understand is that if they can't clear this qualification, it will be a qualification forever, because it affects the opening balances of your books. So anything that affects your opening balance, it doesn't matter how good you can perform in this current financial year. If what you are starting up is not correct, forget about the outcome that will come to that level. So we are waiting to see the final report and see what kind of supporting document are we submitting for condonation, because in the last report they've given us, it's only 1.1 billion that they were able to verify as of that stage. So the 5 billion that they have to do to give us at the end of the financial year what they must disclose in the AFS becomes very crucial. And for sure, as we meet with the committee on regular basis, we will be updating the committee in terms of what interventions have we done from the DOC point of view. And I'm happy that the members are willing to assist us to take them on hand and make sure that we account properly in terms of the public affairs. Thanks, Chair.
Right, thank you very much. Acting DG, yeah, I'll come to small matter. At the end, small matter. No, I'm talking to Hlengwa. He also has a small matter.
No, mine is, ma'am, in the things that we do, in our experiences now, you see, when they say water and sanitation doesn't have money, and when the 30 days payment seems small companies are not being paid, it's because in your accruals and liabilities, because people want to satisfy the Auditor General, they quickly hide and take those monies and throw them in there. So as you do that work, look for your accruals and look for the liabilities. Then you would know that they are not regressing or they are going forward. But if you ignore it, I'm telling you, you'll be dancing at one spot all the time. And that's what the problem is with water and sanitation. I've been educated by the chairperson one day when he dreamed about it and he came and explained it to me. But also you must help them with spelling, Madam Chair, that it's SABC presentation to the Public Accounts Committee, not to the presentation to Standard Committee on Public Accounts. There's no committee like that in Parliament. That is violation of the law. Thank you very much.
All right. Yeah, no, let me give you Hlengwa, the Smolanyana one. I want the DG to close.
It's a Smolanyana
Comrade,
issue.
Chairperson of the Portfolio Committee, I'm sure it will be fair to give you a minute or two. You have been sitting quietly and listening. But let me hear Hlengwa, and then I'll give the acting DG to also say some Smolanyana words.
Thanks, Chair. It's a Smolanyana issue, but on a biganyana matter. Chair, I'm just wanting to plead, let's not convert coming to Parliament to junkets. The number of the component of delegations need not be as large as I'm seeing today. I think let us just exercise that discipline and really bring people here who need to be here. Thanks, Chair.
All right. Acting DG.
Thanks, Honorable Chair and Honorable Members. No, thanks.
I allowed the CFO to go on and on and on because we're talking finances and she is the financial person.
I'll be quick.
Yeah.
I think my CFO has dealt with the issues quite substantially.
Yeah.
But I think just to say that since the department started operation in April 2015, we have put it as our vision that we want all our entities to get clean audits. That is part of the message that we always send to all our entities. And I think sitting where I am, I've had an experience of experiencing what it means to get a clean audit. It's a very excellent experience, and I will want all my entities to be at that same level. I think the other issue that we have done to assist also to share experiences with the entities that have done well, we have also established what you call the DG CEOs Forum, which I chair with all the CEOs so that they can share experiences around how are they doing it, in all of those entities, as it were. But this is governed by a policy that we have developed, which is called the Governance oversight entity policy framework that we have, which governs our relationships. But all the issues that you've raised that requires them to submit, we'll make follow-up, ensure that they submit to the committee as promised here. But lastly, Chair, to say thank you so much. I think for me, it's for the first time to be here. I always watch the scope from a distance, and I think it is a learning experience for me as somebody who's new in this portfolio, and I will try by all means not to be here in this committee. But thank you so much for that opportunity.
Well, we are the only committee that is trying to work itself out of a job. Because if all of you get clean audits, then we have no work to do, and maybe no need for. But no, thanks very much. Comrade Chair.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chairperson, and good afternoon, members and the department and SABC. Nothing much except to say that yesterday we faced the same SABC dealing with the annual report and Q1, Q2. But I think what we are dealing with here, particularly on Auditor General's report, I think that was part of our main focus. Just that we're dealing with a number of things. But members, I think they did a sit on irregular fraudulent expenditure, which is a major problem. So I'm like acting DG. I haven't attended the SCOPA for a number of years now. It's my first one here. So I think the members from the committee together with me here, we agreed that there are specific issues that you put your finger on, and I think those are the issues that we think that we'll also focus, particularly on the Auditor General's report. But thanks very much. We know that we can say anything, but we don't have that time. But thanks, Chair.
All right. Thanks, comrades. Well, Group CEO and your delegation, we want to thank you for coming. And we sincerely want to see the SABC in a much, much better position, in a good position. I know there are people who are happy with an SABC in crisis because it gives them a program. But we want to see it being run well, being financially stable, financially viable, and doing the things that it is meant to do. But you see, I'm not happy with what you did to give us information at the 11th hour. That was wrong. And that should not happen. You see, that should never, ever happen again. Because, you see, we want you to come and for us to work together to find solutions. You see, we don't want to operate on the basis of, say, Isaac Newton's first law of motion. Action and reaction are numerical equal but acting in opposite directions. We don't want that. Because the moment from this side we feel as if we're being undermined or we're being set up to fail, then it creates problems. You see. So we will not want that. Whatever the problems or whatever the shortcomings, give them to us in time. We'll use that to engage and to find solutions together with you. So, want that to be noted. Two, Tombi, we need to go and reprint this in a much, much bigger font that I can read, and we give it to members. Yeah, because I think it's just a lot of information thrown in, but we're going to disaggregate it and make sense out of it. When did this happen? 2012, 2013, here is the information. 2013, 2014, here is the we want to go through it one by one. There's nothing that we're going to gloss over, no matter how big it is. We're used to receiving files in boxes, and we've gone through each and every one of those transactions, because there is none that is going to escape our attention. Now, once we've done that, we're going to process it ourselves, and then when we schedule a meeting with you, we're going to direct you that on the basis of this information that we have, we want to look at A, B, C, D, so that we're not all over. And we'll do it like they do that side when they eat an elephant. We'll do it piece by piece until it's done, so that there's nothing that is closed over. Now, I hear you about you are going to finish these investigations end of March. You see, I want us to change approach. Those that are completed, they must be reported on. We can't wait for everything, because we need to have a sense of progress being made. You know, must be dialectical in our approach. We can't jump like frogs from the starting point to just jump to the end. We want to see progress, because that builds momentum towards your end point. So we'll have this information, but we would want to start to receive information from you, because end of March means you are going to be telling us, on this case, this is what happened. You have not even started yet to deal with taking action against those officials to determine whether they have a case to answer or not. So you see that we're way, 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 way behind in terms of what we're supposed to do. So come the end of March, our expectation is that all these investigations must have been concluded. But we'll then also need to have an agreement in terms of how then do you set up dealing with the officials that are involved, so that in the case of fruitless and wasteful expenditure, money is recovered in relation to irregular expenditure. It is condoned if nobody is held responsible. Otherwise, those officials' action being taken against them, or if they're criminal, then they're taken. So we'd want to see those things sorted out. The information that we agreed that you will send to us, Mr. Ben here is writing down everything. He has everything that you have committed to sending to us. We want that information by next week Wednesday. Next week Wednesday. Let me see. 2, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, I see there's a list of more than 10 issues that we want information on by next week Wednesday, so that it can assist us in shaping our program with of engagement with you, which will either be here in Cape Town or will come up to the SABC, so that we can want to go to the belly of the beast and see for ourselves exactly what's happening. Where are these supply chain management people? Where is your human resource department, and what is happening? Who is doing what, or who is not doing what? So that we can not just tinkle around the issues, but we can really be guaranteed that there will be solutions. And I hope, Comrade Chair, that your own processes will be will be speeded up, because you see, all the three officials sitting here, they are all in an acting capacity. And that being the case, to what extent does it impact on their ability to exert themselves on their job? Or they're actually busy looking for a job somewhere because they're not sure whether they'll still be at the SABC when you look for permanent positions or not. So we need stability. And right. Beyond the SABC, comrades, Ntombi, I think you need to forward this to all members. The invite from the Portfolio Committee on Water and Sanitation on Friday. They have a hearing with the department and the minister on a whole host of issues that are here. They've invited us. They're going to talk about money in the department. So I think it will be important for us to attend. We have affected our next week's program a little bit based on the decision we took yesterday. We have written to the Minister of Social Development to come on Tuesday next week. Just like we did with the correctional services last time, we have invited her, not the department, not SASA. We've invited her as the political head to come and talk to us on what led to the CPS debacle in terms of and I think depending on what she responds, the suggestion that some of us made here yesterday about calling for a comprehensive inquiry on the management of that CPS contract, we may go ahead with it, or she may satisfy us that, well, you know, we had nothing to do. So we've written to her. We're waiting for a response. Just ignore the papers. They probably misquoted her. She accounts to Parliament. Parliament works through its committees, and one of them is COPA. And when we call departments and ministers to appear before us, they have always done so. And so she will come on Tuesday, and we'll have the engagement. Okay? Comrades, thanks very much.